welcome to Stranger Encounters. I'm Tommy Salmons. Today's guests, plural, first time ever, having more than one guest, is a band out of South Africa who's allowing us to use their music for the podcast. They play old school thrash metal. Some people would label it as punk. You could hear a lot of influences from old Metallica to the Misfits in their music. This is Deadline. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, what's up? How you doing? Hey. All right, Jesse Switchblade. I do vocals, and I'm sitting here with the rest of the guys. They're just going to introduce themselves one by one, and then we can get rolling.
Raven Chaos, I play guitar.
Dizzy Sticks, I play the drums and do backup vocals.
Yes, he does.
And Skullbread, I also play guitar.
And Bastille on bass.
Oh, so we got all of you here.
Yeah, the whole shebang, man, the whole crew,
The whole 9 yards.
Whole 5 yards.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on your podcast, bro.
Oh man, thank y'all for coming and thank y'all for letting me use your music. I love it. It's fun. So I was told that y'all are considered Bry metal, and for the American listeners, Bry is the equivalent of barbecue, minus the burgers and hot dogs. I want to get that straight.
Yeah, when we released our debut album, Black Wolf City, there was an online metal magazine from South Africa called Contrast that did a review on us, and the lady went on quite a bit about how it's the perfect music to listen to when you invite your mates over for a barbecue. And she went on and, as a joke, labeled us Bry metal. And yeah, it stuck with a few people. They and I think we kind of like it because it's happy-go-lucky kind of 80s, late 80s, early 90s metal. You know, it's very reminiscent to growing up. So, you know, you put it on, crack open some beers, put some steaks on the fire, and it goes well with Deadline. Yeah.
Yeah. What do y'all think about the punk labeling? I got your CD. I downloaded it onto my computer, and the first thing that came up was punk. And I hear a little bit of the old school punk influence. Like I said, Misfits or something like that. You can hear some influence in there. How much did punk inspire y'all?
Look, I must say this is the first time we hear the word punk being associated with us, but we don't mind that at all, man. I mean, look at a band like Motorhead. You know, anyone from punks to metalheads to rockers, they all like the music and the sound because it's just a broader, you know, it appeals to a broader audience. So we don't mind that label at all. And obviously, punk music, you know, crossover thrash where, you know, punk and thrash is combined is like, Suicidal Tendencies, bands like that. I mean, influences to a certain degree. So, the punk thing is we wouldn't consider ourselves punk, but we don't mind if other people think it's got some punk influences.
It's the first time we've heard it, that's for sure. Cause I mean, when we started, we were a bit, confused on how we were going about things, and we were playing a mix of like 80s hard rock and glam, and we're throwing in some kind of, thrashier rhythms. And then we decided to kind of stick to a more accept Judas Priest kind of, vibe, like that heavy metal, which I guess is now considered hard rock vibe, with just maybe the vocals, because I mean, my vocals aren't very, Rob Halford. They're more kind of James Hetfield. I mean, James Hetfield was influenced by a lot of punks. So I guess maybe in a way that's where the punk would come out, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, some Black Flag maybe as well. There's definitely a lot of influences going through your music, and I think nowadays because there's been so many great bands in the past, it's easy to convolute, and I wouldn't maybe convolute's the wrong word. It's easy to incorporate a lot of different styles, and maybe you don't necessarily hear it when you're doing it, but there's only so much that can be done. And therefore, 100%. Anything you do has been done in some way, shape, or form. So I like the fact that your music is high energy and easy to follow along with. You know, I mean, I'm a big progressive metal fan, but I don't always want to be thinking. You know, you have like the perfect hangover music. If I get up and I don't feel like thinking about something, I can turn on some Deadline and I can just jam out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I told you before, we in no way are trying to reinvent the wheel. We've all got day jobs, and this just came about as Raven had a couple of tunes he'd written. He was teaching Baz how to play the bass, and it all kind of fell together. And right from inception, we weren't trying to play technical, over the board stuff. We were just playing stuff that made us happy. And our influences growing up, we all dug Metallica, Priest, Maiden, that type of stuff. So we were just getting in a band room, jamming, bringing that stuff out, and that's what it was about. So I mean, but I'm glad that people can listen to us when they're hungover. I can't listen to us ever.
I think you mentioning those bands and talking about your style, I think for the Americans, at least my age, the best way to describe the style would be garage band metal. It's the old school garage metal that you would hang out with your buddies and just get together and have your jam sessions and come up with these really hard riffs and really energetic, beats and rhythms, and it's real easy for 4/4 timing, and but it's really catchy, and it's not like, and a lot of people will tear my head off for this, but it's not to me it's not the Slayer AC/DC moniker where you fall into a specific style. You have some really nice solos, some really good breakdowns and things like that. And I'm certain that comes from a lot of Metallica influence, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always played the music that we, like Carlos said, that we grew up with, the music that we love. So we basically play music, that we enjoy. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
The thing is, for us, we're more of a live act than anything else. So when we started, and I mean, I accept that garage band thing because that's how it all came together. When we were jamming, we weren't sure what the plan was. We didn't know whether we wanted to record anything. And then we just got on the stage, and I mean, it's, when you're doing 4/4, it's quite easy to just lose your shit on stage, So down here in South Africa, we quite known for our live show for the energy, the blood, the passion. It gets crazy on stage, and it's easy to translate that. You get up, it's you don't have to sit with your guitar by your chin playing 15,000 strings. We just use 4 strings on bass and 6 on guitar. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, who else was known for their live show? Grand Funk Railroad. And that didn't turn out too bad.
Yeah. Nice. The Grand Funk Railroad from Tshwane, South Africa.
Your next hit's going to be We're a South African Band.
Sorry?
I said your next hit's going to be We're a South African Band.
Yeah.
Don't joke. No. There's a glam band from South Africa that actually wrote a song called Rock and Roll Pretoria. Good mates of ours. It's actually quite catchy.
That's awesome.
I think I just want to add, none of the 5 of us ever thought, I think, this would become what it has become, I mean, if we're looking at just where we've toured in this country, all sorts of cities and towns. We're going to Botswana later this year, which is, across the border. It's another country. There's a massive metal scene there as well. So not only is our name spreading locally, it's actually international if you look at it that way. We never thought we'd be crossing borders to go play for a couple of thousand people in another country. So this has exceeded all of our, I think, wildest dreams, and we're super chuffed with that, man. We love getting on stage, and it's our happy place. And we'll do it as long as we can.
You see, for me, South Africa has extremely talented musicians, but the one thing I always felt that was lacking on stage was the stage presence. And we've been quite lucky for many years myself, nearly 20 years of doing European metal festivals. The one thing that always stood apart was the energy levels and the passion that the international bands, brought to the stage. So when we created Deadline, we wanted to kind of take that, be inspired by that. And we always joke and say, it's all about power. And if you break that down, it's all about the energy. And, like when people see us on stage, they can see we're very passionate. And for not 1 second are we just sitting and just playing. We rang around, we're drenched in sweat. And like Jesse said, there's actual blood, sweat, and even tears. So we are really a passionate band, I think, and that's what has made Deadline, stick above the rest here in South Africa. And again, great musos, but we want to take it to the next level by being as passionate and as energetic as possible.
And so, was it earlier this year or was it last year? Y'all won a couple of awards. What were the awards that y'all won, and what was the contest that y'all were involved in?
Okay, so basically, there's a few years back, a couple of people within the South African heavy metal scene created an awards ceremony called the South African Metal Music Awards, known as the SAMAs, not to be confused with the South African Music Awards, also known as the SAMAs. So I don't know if the thinking behind that was too great. But in 2016, we won Best Newcomer, which is great for our age. And then the following year, so 2017, which is the two awards we picked up this year, was Best Live Act in the South African metal community, as well as Best Old School Metal Act. They normally give prizes for Best Core, Best Death, Best Black, but because there's not a lot of bands playing old school metal, they pretty much included hard rock, power, punk, anything that sounds old school in that award. So that's a cool one to win because it transcends borders and genres. And so we took that. But the one that we were most happiest about was obviously winning Best Live Act.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Now, I know that in South Africa that maybe all right, y'all probably have a good music scene. But as far as getting signed and as far as getting recognition, it's got to be really difficult. How are y'all overcoming those obstacles?
I think if you're a metal band, you won't get signed here. There's no real label signing metal bands in South Africa. I think South African music, there's a lot of indie. There's a lot of kind of just your, what I like to call generic campus rock. A lot of bands do quite well if they play that kind of stuff because it's easy on the ear, And obviously a lot of dance and house and kwaito acts, kwaito being township dance music. Metal acts, 2 or 3 have broken through, but they've done it basically on their own labels through their own work, their own kind of DIY ethos, There's a slam band currently doing well in South Africa called Valvadinia, but they became big overseas before they were big here. Before they'd even played a gig, but it was all through the internet, It's young guys that embraced the internet, I guess, quicker than guys like us. And, but I mean, as far as signing to a label, yes, it's quite difficult.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know, well, in today's market, and I tend to talk to everybody about this a little bit. In today's market, it's a lot different than it was, like 10, 15 years ago. You don't necessarily have to get on a label nowadays to get your name out. How do you feel like today's technology has really assisted in creating an energy behind your band that maybe you couldn't have gotten 10 years prior?
I think social media has played quite a massive role. We're quite hardworking when it comes to social media. And it's all about getting out there, word of mouth, using Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we just try and push ourselves as much as possible. And I think our biggest help is word of mouth. And what happens usually is right from the start, unknown band, we started playing live, and then the word spread because of our live act. Again, it boils down to the live act. So I think word of mouth and to a very great extent, social media has assisted us in, people getting to know.
Yeah, but I think also sort of age. I mean, you get your music across borders a lot quicker than you did previously. sort of in the old days,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would sign with a record label, produce an album, and then have to try to sell it that way. These days with YouTube and that, you can get it across many countries quite quickly. It just depends on which market you target and which people enjoy your music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember back in the day getting the underground tapes. I don't know if y'all had those going around in South Africa. But we would get a hold of tapes of like Metallica from, before, Garage Days was recorded and this, that, and the other. And we would find all this music underground. And nowadays you have the ability to get the production sound of a record label on your own, whether you're using GarageBand or Audacity or whatever you're using. You buy your own. You can buy a digital recorder at I don't know if y'all have Guitar Center, but at a music store for a couple $100, and you can produce record label sounding material for relatively inexpensive and put it out there and get an audience listening to a very high quality of music for a generally low cost and low effort. I wouldn't say effort necessarily, because there's a lot of effort that goes into writing music, but but as far as your marketing ability and marketing yourself to an outside source, an outside publisher, you can do it all yourself, and I think that's a really big deal nowadays.
No, for sure. Also, the other advantage is we're all in our late 30s, and a lot of people that like the music we're playing are in their late 50s, but they don't go out to clubs. They're all married with kids. They won't necessarily just put on a pair of stretch denims and a leather jacket and go to a heavy metal club, because, I mean, most metal clubs are quite dingy, little holes in the wall, like biker kind of vibes, and it's basically people within the scene watch us, and most people within the scene don't like our kind of music. They consider Metallica dad rock and stuff like that, So we, by having the internet, you can just pop a song or two on it, and then people that generally wouldn't have come to your kind of show will hear it and say, oh wow, this reminds me of 1993, when I was growing up. Let me come check these guys out. So, you wouldn't have had that in the 90s or the early 2000s. So it's another cool way to get people to come to your shows.
Yeah. Now you were mentioning a part of the way the band came together was y'all were teaching the bass player how to play bass.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Actually, I want to direct this question to you. The only musician I've ever heard of getting on stage at a very early time of their of learning how to play an instrument was Robby Krieger, and I think he had been playing guitar for 6 months before the Doors were established. What was it like for you, basically learning how to play an instrument on stage in front of a crowd?
Well, the guys have always known that, growing up, I never saw myself as a person to pick up an instrument. I was always, surrounded by muso friends, spent most of my youth going and watching live music. The passion was always there, but the musical side of it was not. So a couple of years ago, old Raven Chaos over here approached me, and he said, had a couple of ideas, and he asked me if I would be keen to learn how to play an instrument. And my initial response was, it's at this time of my life, there's no ways I could pick up an instrument. But he stuck through it, and kudos to him for having the patience to teach me. And we started very basic. He would borrow me his bass guitar, and we'd sit there in his little man cave and just work on songs, work on basic riffs and things like that. And it progressed. Then I decided, this is actually not impossible. And I actually ordered my BC Rich Warlock Revenge from Sam Ash in New York, and they shipped it to South Africa within a week. And it's such a bitching looking guitar that just suited the whole image. But I think what really helped a lot was firstly Raven's patience with me, and secondly, we're also passionate about the music. that we thought to ourselves, you know what, we can actually try and take this to the next level. But again, we never thought it would actually become this band that's quite well known especially in the South African metal scene in South Africa and in Southern Africa. So yeah, it was quite daunting. Our first show was at a crazy scientist friend of mine's basement, where it was a private party. We had about 150 or so fans. And I was
friends.
Yeah, friends, yeah. And I was, as nervous as shit. So, my biggest fear was I don't want to, let the band down. I always felt, I'm the weakest link. I've only picked up the instrument, it was like less than a year. And here we're sitting and playing to a small audience, but still, you don't want to let the band down by, playing false notes and all that shit. But I must say, the first show, it was quite a surreal experience because you start playing and all of a sudden this, caged beast that, was always suppressed in all the years of growing up, all of a sudden it has a chance to surface. And, I must say, even to this day after, we've played over 70 shows and, there's always a little bit of nervousness on my side. But the moment you hit that stage, it's kind of like your Jekyll Hyde, and then the beast comes out. You're going to autopilot, and I think that's actually what's helped. It's the beast within. Thanks, Raven.
The wildebeest.
And so far so good. I must say, I cannot explain it to friends and family and all that. The feeling you get playing on stage, be it a small crowd or big crowd, it's I don't know, it's like a drug. It's amazing. It's very liberating. That's for sure.
Back to what you started the program with.
Exactly. Freedom. Yeah, and it's all about freedom. Exactly. Where you playing we play the music that we love, and it's a very humbling experience when you play the music that you love to people that are actually enjoying your music. Not only that, also enjoying your live performance, because we really strive to take our live act to the next level. And we, of course, our own biggest critics. We always sit down after the show, what was good, what was bad. And we really try, to take it to the next level and being known as a kick-ass fucking live band.
So in order to perfect your stage performance, do you record, like video record your shows and go back and watch them and just nitpick every little thing, or do you just take some feedback and just run with it, or what? How do y'all do that?
I don't know if I should answer this. So we have one arsehole in the band, and that's me. And on stage, I don't know anything. Like I don't play any instrument. I just run around with a microphone and a stand, and I destroy and break. So I'm able to a lot of times separate myself and hear a little bit better because I don't have to focus on playing rhythms and solos and, beats and stuff like that. So after every show, I get them backstage and then I give them a little bit of a speech of what can improve and what will improve. Because, if it doesn't, then, all shit fucking breaks loose then. So it's easier for me to separate myself from the band and from the music and, see where we can improve. And sometimes we go through phases where the autopilot kicks in and we play 2, 3, 4 gigs and, because we're not pushing as hard, it doesn't come out as good. And some, you actually need to touch base after every gig. Not only musically, but with your performance. Sometimes if you perform a bit too much, then you lose in the music. And what I tell the guys is, music comes first. Music comes first and know your space. I mean, obviously because we play in little pubs and biker bars, we're not playing in stages, that are designed by Iron Maiden. And, so we have limited amounts of space. So own your space but music must always come first. And if you feel that the music's taking a back seat, let me do the rest. Cause I just have to throw myself into the crowd. I got the mic. It's not like I really need to just the lyrics. But half the time the sound's so bad, even if you forget a word or two, it doesn't really influence the outcome of the music.
Going back to your, sorry,
go ahead.
The point of, people, shooting video. There are a couple of friends that have shot some live footage of us, and we look at that and see how we can improve. But like Jesse says, a lot of times space is quite limited, and there are five of us in the band. But we try and make a plan, and we practice really hard. Like during the week, we don't just sit and play our instruments. We try and think of, cool things to do on stage.
Props.
Again, props, being inspired by the bands that, we love, looking at, what the Maidens and the Priests and the Manowars do. And it's about bringing the power to the stage and to the audience.
Mm. So after a show, you go back and you're able to sit and you're talking about how the performance went. Is there ever a time where the emotions are so high, the adrenaline's running so high that the other members are not able or willing to hear any kind of criticism that might be coming their way?
Never really.
No, I don't think so.
We've never, these guys are all very chilled, I must say. Like, I think before we started the podcast, you spoke about choosing the right members for a band.
Mm-hmm.
I believe every band needs that, or at least somebody that's outspoken and is willing to step on some toes. I mean, Iron Maiden had it with Steve Harris. Dio did it. Lars does it. Everyone hates Lars, but if it wasn't for Lars's tenacity, Metallica wouldn't have been, won't be where they are. And the guys are very chilled. And the thing is, I think I'll be the first to criticize myself. Especially a lot of times when I'm throwing myself around, sometimes my voice, I can't reach the highs or whatever the case may be. And I'll be the first to get off stage and say, sure, I didn't, today wasn't one of my best. But I think it's done in a way where we all see the common goal is deadline, deadline ahead of egos.
Mm.
I think sometimes it can hurt, and it will, because I'm a bit of a straight shooter, but I think we were able to see the bigger picture. And also, we're not 21 years old. I think we all know what we can achieve, what we can do. We know ourselves well. We're not insecure about. And at the end of the day, look, people pay $40 or $50 or whatever the case may be. South African rand, that's obviously like 1 cent in America because our rand is so poor. But you want to give them the best possible show no matter what, no matter. We've played with a few international acts at festivals. We've played to 10 people. Doesn't matter if it's one person or 5,000. You gotta give your best show. You've got to play your best, and your own ego's got to come second to that.
I think maybe one thing to add to that, even when we're going through the good points, the bad points after a show, I mean, it's all constructive. So as soon as you hear something maybe you didn't do as well and you could do better, all that happens is the next show you do that better. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it gives you something to really think about.
For sure.
Something to strive for. You can set goals for yourself, and you have a goal going into the next show. You have a goal going into the next practice. You have something. I was just curious because I know that being up in front of that many people and putting on such an energetic show, you have to be full of adrenaline by the time that show ends. So it was just a curiosity I had as to whether or not that ever overrides, because y'all seem like a group of guys that get along really well, but that's not to say that y'all don't have any struggles. And I think people are always looking for, they think bands are always buddy and up each other's ass, and you live together whenever you're out like touring or whatever, and you're moving around, and if y'all go to Cape Town for a weekend and play 3 shows that weekend, that's a lot of time to be spending with each other and right up on top of each other. So how do y'all overcome the obstacles of the possibility of conflict entering into the band and actually causing a bad show to take place? Or is it something where you know each other so well you can tell when each person needs their space and their time just to function properly come that show that night?
With Deadline, some of us have known each other for 20 years. Myself and Sculprit went to school together, so it's a 25-year-old friendship. And with the rest of the guys, we've known each other for quite a few years. So there's definitely, it's, we're friends, that's especially, going back for so many years. But look, I suppose, because we know each other so well, there are times, it's all about respect and, just giving each other space when it's needed. But apart from that, it's, we're like a gang. You see us and, you always have to double take because where every single band, rocks up, looks like they came from a barbecue, we look legit. And, looks are just as important as the sound. And, again, we like a gang, you know what I mean? So we're there for each other. There's always mutual respect and, it's based on a friendship, which I think is very important. So a lot of people just want to meet musicians to start a band, but at the end of the day, you can be the two greatest musicians. If you don't get along as friends, then what's the point?
I just want to add to what Baz still said. I've been in a couple of bands and it would normally always be, your first port of call or the first person you think of is like, a good buddy. And for me, in my previous bands, that never really worked. But when I approached Baz, I knew him, but we weren't that close as friends, So for me, the lesson I learned was approach guys that is just going to have this, the same headspace as you in terms of music, the same influences, and somebody that can show the passion. Put the friendship aside. The friendship will come as the band progresses, But just get in touch with a like-minded person and let the rest just come.
Okay. Yeah. One of the experiences I had, I thought it was pretty funny. You'll probably get a kick out of this. I had just gotten out of the military. I was like 23 years old, and I had been writing music for, I don't know, since I was like 16 or 17. And I decided that once I got out of the military, I was going to audition for some bands. And one of the auditions I went to, they were, what was this, 2003. They wanted me to be able to sing identical to Jonathan Davis, which I don't know about identical, but it wasn't that difficult. And I went in, I auditioned. The drummer, no, not the drummer, the bass player, the guitar player, and the other guitar player were all about it, and they were like, they recorded it, and they were like, all right, we're gonna get a hold of you in like a week, right? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. And the bass player was a chick. She was like this really big Kitty fan at the time, and I was sitting there and hanging out, and the guitar player, he had called me, and he was a cool dude. We had gone and had a few beers, a couple of times. We had hung out a little bit, and he called me. He's like, hey man, we decided to go another route. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it went well. I had canceled all the other auditions I had because I thought it had gone well. I was like, all right, that's cool, man. Like, we'll hang out still or whatever. He goes, well, I don't know if I can hang out with you. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? He said, the only reason we didn't accept you to the band and we went with this other guy who wasn't as good as you is because the drummer got pissed off because the bass player was checking me out, and he had a thing for the bass player for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
And dude, this chick looked like she had been beat by 5 ugly trees. I was like, there's no way. Like, she can look at me however the hell she wants to look at me. There's nothing gonna happen, bro.
Yeah,
so whatever you do, stay away from the Stevie Nicks style of musician.
Don't joke. I've actually heard a lot about that. Like, a band that's got a girl, and then she always somehow manages to get in the way of like 2 dudes because the one is trying to mack her and the other guy thinks he's going to get with her. And we've got a few mates that have experienced that. Look, but I think at the end of the day, it's just respect. After we don't hang every day. We've all got, Raven's got a wife with 2 kids. Dizzy's got his own thing going. Baz has got his own. We've all got our lives away from the band. We've got friendship groups away from the band. So it's not like we're up in each other's faces all the time. and we sing from the same hymn sheet. And I think we respect each other. I think before we respect each other as musicians, we respect each other as human beings, you know.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll get a bit heated and I can check it might go the wrong way or whatever, then I'll just back down, you know. At the end of the day, the first prize is Deadline. You know, Deadline plays to the public. Deadline is out there doing the music. We're just kind of the instruments, kind of, you know. Deadline is the big boss and you can't take Deadline down because we've now got a bit of a following and we just got to keep rolling with those punches. But I mean, we see it a lot here. So many bands break up and it's always a respect thing. You know, guys that think they're better than the other, guy that doesn't want to play the other guy's music, a guy that gets completely drunk and misses practice. You know, it takes a lot because, I mean, obviously because we've got day jobs, we practice between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know, you want to get there at 8 and you want to make sure that nobody's late, that everybody is not tired because they were smoking weed the whole day or whatever the case may be, you know. You sacrifice a lot of your time. I mean, Raven, for example, family time. And he expects, you know, the people that pitch up there and jam with him to be singing from the same hymn sheet as him.
Well, and here's something. Like, y'all been together for what, 4 years now?
Yeah, next month it's exactly 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are going to be like, okay, the success that y'all are experiencing, they're going to basically consider you an overnight success. But what people don't look at is, y'all had brought it up earlier, we had talked about it before, about all the other bands and all the other musicians y'all have dealt with. Not only how long it's taken y'all to learn how to play your instruments, but in the time that you've dedicated to playing your instruments and learning the songs, but how much time you put into bands prior to Deadline, and how many years you've been playing music. And in your late 30s, it is so easy to get to have that point of view, like, well, nothing's happened, like, this is just a waste of my time. But y'all stuck with it, and now you're experiencing the rewards of all the hard work that has built you up to the place that you're at. Can you explain to the audience how important it is to stick with something, no matter how many failures that you're facing, and how many obstacles you have to overcome?
Yeah, like I said before, before this band, I was in a couple of, yeah, me and Dizzy go back to a previous band that didn't work out. There was 2 or 3 bands before that, and you know, if you get kicked out of a band or you kick other people out of the band and because of that it doesn't work out, I mean, it knocks you, and you know, you take a couple of steps backward and you have to kind of regroup. And for a long time I didn't even touch the guitar. Like 4 or 5 years I didn't even play. I was just so out of it, and you know, I just wasn't interested. And you know, there was always just this little bit of nagging in the back of my mind that just said, just keep on going, just go pick up the guitar, and you know, it will work out, it will work out. And I eventually stuck with it, and I just said, you know, I don't want my passion to die so early, and I want to be on a stage more. So that's how the Deadline thing happened. You know, I approached Baz, and it just grew from there. So persistence, perseverance is absolutely a must, and I think it's also part of the heavy metal way. I mean, you know, you just got to keep on pushing.
Don't say no.
Don't say
you know,
no.
I think everybody needs a hobby. You know, yeah, we gym and we like to, well, some of us like to stay fit or whatever the case may be. But it's important to you know, like either you play golf or you cycle. And I guess what's nice about this is that it's very fulfilling. So, you know, if you can find a couple other guys to, I mean, before Deadline, I was in a Metallica tribute band called Gunship, and extremely talented musos, but I mean, we used to fight every second week, you know. I think I left the band, I quit, I got fired 4 times. The drummer fired himself like 6 times. And the one guitarist 4 times. Like, you know, a new guy was leaving and the same guy was returning 2 weeks later. And that was after like fist fights almost. They're like, then having to meet up and apologize and all this crap. And, you know, and the thing is, you need something like, I mean, going back to the whole concept of freedom, man, you need something to just, I mean, we live in a world where we're slaves to basically everything. Our 9 to 5 routine, our fucking cell phones, Facebook, I can't do anything without no one knowing where I'm at, And, it's a very liberating experience, and it's cool when you find dudes that, their definition of freedom is your definition of freedom. And I'll tell you what, this is way more rewarding than a round of golf. That's for sure. Fuck.
For me, this is, because this is my first ever band, and, it's a very healthy form of escapism. And again, it's liberating, you got that sense of freedom, and, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, well, and it's got to be. I mean, we talked about it beforehand, and y'all brought it up a couple of times. The idea of freedom, and it's got to be probably the most rewarding type of experience, and the most liberating experience to be up on stage and to be doing something you love, and to be in your own space. You're not governed by anything. It's your rules up there on that stage. And you're basically the god of your little universe right there in that moment.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah.
Nice summary. Yeah. That's our fucking stage. Get off it. For 45 minutes. This is our plan. Yeah. Till the next band. We got 15 minutes to clear up our props, clean up the blood, and collect everybody's beer bottles. Although we seem to be getting good shots now, so we don't have to clean up anything because we're the headliners. But it is, when you can create something that touches people's lives in any form or way. I mean, and you can see it happening. You're sitting. I mean, Dizzy will sit behind the drums and he can look up and see the people's, their faces and their reactions. I mean, myself, when I'm standing on an amp and I look out and I check, it's really cool,
I've actually got the best seat in the house because I can see all these dudes jamming and the crowd going nuts. So, that's really, I got the best seat in the house.
Nice.
And you got it for, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to not stop playing and just, be a fan for a minute, huh?
Yeah, look, his only drawback is he doesn't get as many photos as we do on Facebook.
Yeah.
The photographers never get out to the back.
Yeah. There's always another band member in front of him.
Yeah. He's just in the ultimate photo bomb position. Just pull a Vinnie Paul and stand up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We do tell him that.
In the front of the stage.
I've never been in a band successfully, so you probably don't want to take any of my advice.
We roll with the punches, eh? We'll take what we can get. But it's cool. Like you get your 9 to 5 is so like mundane half the time, and then you get to go into this little garage, open it up, turn the amps to 10, although we don't. I think we turn them to 3.
Mine's at 2.
And, you put on your leathers and your battle jackets and, whether it's band practice or whether it's on stage for 30 or 40 minutes or an hour, whatever, you get to live out those childhood fantasies that were taking place in front of a mirror. You put on Metallica's Master of Puppets and you pretend that you're James Hetfield and you riffing without a guitar with your tennis racket even, when you're a kid. And, so it's cool to be doing that now in a country where it's quite hard to be in a metal band. It's quite hard to, there's a scene, but there's almost no scene. It's growing and it gets, sometimes I feel like it gets bigger, than other times it almost feels like it's getting smaller because of infighting and whatever the case may be. But, to be doing what we love, especially now, because, I always tell these guys that our music, the music we play is pretty outdated. It's not 1989 anymore. And, we play most of the bands that we play with are metalcore bands, deathcore, death metal, black metal, maybe one groove metal band, So to have achieved the success we have in South Africa playing what I call, outdated music is phenomenal. And it's such a good feeling because it's like, I don't want to sound like a metal elitist, but it's like, yes, I knew it, man. Fuck yeah. This is metal. You know,
Well, everybody likes to party, man. So
that's it, man. And look, I don't think anyone parties harder than Deadline, even though we're old and moldy.
You got a lot of practice playing. You got a lot of practice partying.
Oh yeah.
How is the competition when it comes to the metal scene in South Africa? I had a buddy of mine who was in a band, and they were really good. Their lead vocalist thought he was the lead singer of Stryper there for a while, but for the most part, they were a good band. And I remember being at the Battle of the Bands with them, and we're hanging out, and the way this Battle of the Bands was set up, it was in a warehouse. There was no stage. They just had a roped off area. And so the band was right on top of the crowd. Like you were basically standing right there with the band because they were just in this little roped off area. They couldn't go anywhere and the crowd is circling them. And I remember one band played and they played their set and they did pretty good. And I think they were the favorite going into Battle of the Bands to win Battle of the Bands. And my buddy's band got up in the stage area, quote unquote, and they started playing. And about 3 songs into it, the bass player from the favorite band came in and just waylaid the bass player of my buddy's band, just knocked him off his fucking feet, and a fight ensued. And it was just chaos everywhere. And come to find out, he was so mad that my buddy's band sounded better than them that he just went ballistic, and he couldn't stand the fact that they actually had some competition this year as opposed to every other year. Do you see things like that in South Africa in the metal scene?
Not in the metal scene. I mean, everybody here is very buddy, man. I mean, I think we've played 2 battles of the band, which we'd rather not talk about. One was to open for Iron Maiden, where we were, we got to the final. Okay, we had a lot of technical difficulties. I think that a lot of shit was tampered with. But okay, that wasn't within the metal scene because there was a lot of indie and rock bands that were involved in that. So it wasn't so much within the metal scene. And we should have, well, us and maybe 1 or 2 others could have won. And we believe that the worst band of the night won. And then afterwards, a lot of information came out regarding, collusion and stuff like that. But anyway, but within the metal scene itself, everyone's very supportive, we know we're a small scene. I think the musos, there's not really a lot of jealousy or any, everyone, we try, majority of the guys try to get there early to catch the other bands. The problem with our scene is that sometimes it's just bands supporting bands, people come out and then they stand outside, like dudes will be hitting on the only 5 chicks in the scene outside. And the scene a lot of people use the scene as a crutch, and they don't actually, but the support of the bands I think if you cross over to the rock, to kind of the indie rock genre, then there's a little bit of, and I'll just give you an example. Last year we got asked to open for one of the biggest artists in South Africa. They're quite renowned in the country, and we weren't asked to open by them, but actually by the club owner. And we were 8 minutes into our set. We had a 30-minute set. We had 6 songs play. We were going to play 6 songs. We were 2 songs down, and they came and they told us to play 2 more songs because we've been playing too long. And at that moment, we were kicking some serious ass. We had all these little millennials and indie kids where they're funny, jeans up to their ankles and shit, and they were going absolutely mad, and we had to cut it, I mean, we were cooking. That place was on fire. I think, oh man, it was maybe it was maybe that we got asked to stop because there were going to be a lot of injuries and deaths. But I mean, afterwards we found out that they were pretty jealous because of how hard we were destroying. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the problem is because there's only so many places in the sun in South Africa, and I don't think many metal bands will ever get it, And we're happy to be where we are, living the spirit of Maiden. We don't take no for an answer, and we just keep kicking ass.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about indie. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I'll fucking burn all of them and their houses. And their parents.
Now, but back to the same topic, there's definitely a lot of support amongst the bands. I mean, for instance, we're quite close with a lot of bands. There were members that couldn't make certain gigs there, so we stood in for them. We've had the same where 1 or 2 gigs we couldn't have one of our members there. They stood in for us. So as far as the scene goes, just purely the metal scene, it's actually very close.
And you'd always see other bands, you know, in the crowd watching. Like, I mean, Carlos said a lot of times it's bands supporting bands, but also on the big festivals and that, you know, there's quite a lot of fans, and you'll see 1 or 2 of the band members from the other bands just completely rocking out to our music, and we'll always try and do the same. So there's a massive amount of support. We've always been a band, I call it 3 Fs: fans, friends, and family, you know. And like when we launched our album in September last year, October last year, sorry. I mean, there was an overwhelming amount of support for us, and it was a lot of fans, friends, and family, and they have become very, very passionate. And the nice thing is we see how they're supportive of the other bands also playing, you know. So more and more often they're coming earlier to support the bands that are playing before us, and they stay longer to watch the bands after us.
Yeah.
So it's not just within the band, but it's spreading out to the fans also, not just coming to watch their band play and then fucking off. They're coming to watch at least 5, 6 bands, you know, which is good to see. We're happy to see that.
Yeah, and even if you, for example, the South African Metal Music Awards, you win an award and you beat off 4 other bands. I mean, the guys afterwards are by the bar buying you a drink, high-fiving you. And I mean, we did the same. I mean, when we took our Best Live Act Award, there's a band in South Africa that I happen to think is absolutely amazing live called Riddle Break. And I mean, we gave them props, you know, when we got up on stage. I mean, there's a big respect within the scene, because I think we know how tough it is to be in the scene, you know. And it's bands from Cape Town, Durban, Joburg. I mean, there's been 1 or 2 bands where there's been a few arseholes, but I mean, the minute they became arseholes, they also disappeared, you know. Because that's when you see the power of the scene, you know. There's no room for arseholes.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the Southern metal scene, which you'll have a lot of bands that most people have never heard of, but they all support each other as they're touring. They're staying at each other's homes. They know each other's families. They all barbecue together. They all hang out together. And you have a few, you know, big bands in that scene. You have, you know, Down and Phil Anselmo's doing Phil Anselmo and the Illegals. You have, Hank 3. You have Crowbar. You have, I Hate God. But then you have, smaller bands that people have never heard of, like Southern Whiskey Rebellion or Sign of the Southern Cross and Harp. And they all they all interact as a family, you know, and it's a really cool scene to go to, because you'll go to a show to see, you know, like I drove, from Houston to New Orleans in 2005 to see Downplay in New Orleans, and it was Halloween weekend, and they had they have a big festival. I can't remember the name of the festival that was going on, but the headliner of the festival was Soundgarden, and Mastodon was playing, and that after Mastodon played, they left the festival, came over to the club that we were all hanging out at, and jumped on stage with Down to close out the show. You know, so it's a really cool scene there. I mean, I sat there all night, hung out with the guitar player from Harp and, the lead singer of a band called Pony Killer. And we just hung out and drank beer all night, talking to Jimmy Bauer, the drummer from Down and the guitar player from I Hate God. And he knew my great grandma. You know, it was just like this really small, it's just this really small knit community, man. And it's just really cool, you know, because like you never know who you're going to run into. I remember one time I'm at a truck stop and there's a guy wearing a Crowbar shirt, and he happened to be the guitar player for Red Fang. And they had just opened up for Mastodon the night before, you know, so it's just a really cool community to be involved in. It sounds like that's what the South African music community is like, especially in the metal arena.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about I already have, but about the rest of the community, but I find it's a bit disjointed. But look, I mean, we go through ups and downs like all communities, but I think the metal one is Yeah, man. I mean, the other day we played a gig with a band called Chaos Doctrine, and they do a cover of, they're like an industrial death metal band. Check them out. They're very cool. And they do a cover of Sepultura's Refuse Resist, and the singer was like, why don't you just hop up on stage and do it with me, you know? We often get join us on stage for covers, etc. You know, we do it.
Done with Orgasm.
I did another Sepultura song, Roots, Bloody Roots of Orgasm. So if the guys are there and the guys know, they're very quick to get the guys on, you know, they get us on board, we get them on board. There's, you know, as long as there's beer involved and a little bit of sweat and blood, we're all happy to,
to give you a good example, I mean, later in the year, we're going down to the Eastern Cape, which is one of our provinces, and there's a city there, PE, and just outside PE is another student, because there's a university there called Grahamstown. There's a band there called Mezzanine Floor, and they've been wanting us to play there for at least for the better part of a year. So they've been pushing and getting us to do it, and we finally, you know, arranged the itinerary and we're doing it. But you know, they have arranged everything. They're picking us up from the airport. We're staying with them. You know, their parents have gotten involved in, you know, in terms of feeding us, in terms of giving us a roof over our heads, you know, sorted everything out in terms of transport. So, and purely because when they came up here for the 2016 Sama Award, they were one of the nominees. You know, we did the same for them. We, Old Sculprit hosted quite a few of them, and we just hung out and drank beer and partied and had a good time. And they just basically want to return the favor. And we're just happy that they want to, because for us, it's an opportunity to go play in a town that we've never played before, to people we've never played before. So, like you say, it's such a small community, although relatively speaking, I mean, I think if any metalhead from America or Europe or anywhere in the world came here and they saw what was actually happening, not just in South Africa, but in any of the bordering countries, they'd actually be quite shocked and surprised. Yeah. So relatively speaking, it's small, but I think, there's some really good bands here, and we're a tight knit community, and we love supporting each other. So, it sounds like, you guys have got the same thing going on down there in the south.
Just like Dave Mustaine and Ulrich.
You were saying, Carlos was saying a while ago that his Metallica cover band drummer kept firing himself, and the first thought I had was, I wish Lars would fire himself.
Lars is the boss of all of us. He's our president.
Is he?
I love that. Okay.
I'm not on board with that. Like I said, like I told you before, I'm an anarchist. I'm definitely not on board with that.
Well, I think if
the president
we choose would be Billy from Testament.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll follow Chuck.
Yeah. I used to jam with a guy who was a huge Testament fan. The problem was he didn't want to do anything but play Testament. I think it's important that we see, because we hear a lot about the Norwegian metal scenes. We hear about all these European metal scenes, the American metal scene, obviously. A lot of these bands have followings, but you don't hear about the South African or South Africa metal scenes. You know, and there's a lot of talent there. You mentioned Mezzanine Floor, and Carlos introduced me to them, and I really enjoy them. I think they're a really, really good band, and I would love to hear more of their stuff. So I think it's really important that you get your name out there, you know. So when y'all headline Hellfest, you can give me free tickets.
Don't you mean when we headline what's that dance festival in Holland?
The dance festival in Holland.
Tomorrowland. When we headline Tomorrowland with David Guetta, that's what you mean.
I wouldn't mind if y'all could headline Maryland Death Fest. I would drive to Maryland to see.
No, we'd love to look. We're trying to work on hopefully getting our asses to Europe. Every time we go on holidays, we take some flyers. We try to talk to some people there. There's actually a guy that helps run a Romanian metal fest called a Rockstar, South African guy, and he always manages to get a South African band on the bill. So I want to see if we can maybe get something that side next year. But for now, what we've done, like what we've achieved is pretty cool. Now we can do Port Elizabeth, Grahamstown, Botswana. We want to do Mozambique, Bloemfontein, hopefully Angola, and then at least we've conquered the whole of the southern tip of Africa.
Yeah.
You can get out to anywhere, anytime, but you need a following. You don't want to spend all this money and play it like a dingy bar in Lithuania, and then like 3 people are there. The bouncer, the bar lady, and the owner. So you gotta at least make sure that people know you. And I mean, it moves slowly, but it moves. We've had a few people from Greece, Portugal, Germany, America, ordering our CD. So it's always nice when you send that envelope, that little cushioned envelope with your CD or some patches or some stickers overseas, because you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Or doing a podcast with you, like we actually, a Greek radio station did like a whole special on us the other day. Like a little 25-minute expose.
Really?
That was pretty cool.
Oh,
we had to, we recorded everything, and then like he played 3 of our songs, and then just gave a little bit of a history on who we are, what we are, how we are. Yeah, that's quite humbling, Very cool.
yeah. That is cool. It's nice to see that you're getting recognition. How much do you think, cause I know it was here, what was it, probably the last, see, Beatrix was still there, and she left in 2014. So I guess it's been the last 7 years. You've actually been getting some big name bands coming there, Lamb of God. I don't remember, did Machine Head come there?
No.
I don't remember.
Gate, we've had Trivium, obviously Maiden, Metallica's come, Cataclysm's come a couple of times.
Sepultura.
Cataclysm, yeah.
Not Corpaclani, sorry, Elstorm. We're actually, last year we played with, not that we actually knew them, but we played with Intervals in Memphis May Fire. And, and the last few months we played with 2 Swedish bands. We played with Prescription Death and Godmother. They're more like crust or deathcore. I'm not even sure what they are. Very nice guys. And we're actually playing with with an Italian black metal band now in October. This et Umbra. But
nice.
We got the Pixies the other day. We're getting James. We're getting Guns N' Roses is coming in November. We're seeing a lot more. Whereas before we were reliant on maybe 1 or 2 promoters. Obviously, big concerts being the big one that brings all the big kind of the pop bands and the big rock bands, and then Witch Doctor Records, which was bringing kind of your death metal, your Cataclysms and your Cannibal Corpses. Now 1 or 2 other players are in the game. We've got Turning Tricks Entertainment that hosts a festival in September called Cranked Up. This year it's headlined by Sick and Miss May I. So the guys, we're definitely getting more involved in the global heavy metal scene, we're getting a lot more coming up. It's really cool.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. I was wondering, have you seen like an uptick in the amount of metal fans since these bigger bands, these international bands have been going out of their way to travel to South Africa? Was it kind of like a chicken and egg thing where it was like, well, what's going to come first, the metal fan or the metal band, Is it kind of like a conversion theory that once they showed up, if you build it, they will come type deal?
Look, what I'd like to say is when the big bands come, there's certainly a lot of old school metal fans coming out of the woodwork, that you wouldn't normally see at a small show where Deadline's playing or a Mezzanine Floor is playing, So I think there's a lot more metal are actually active. And when the big bands come, they tend to come out and support, which is great to see, But for us, obviously, we come, when Deadline's playing or when, Riddle Break, whoever is playing. So I think, and just as an example, 2015, when I met Exodus at the Gospel Festival in Belgium, we were talking about me and what's the lead singer's name? Zetra. Steve Zetra Souza. We were just speaking about, I'm from South Africa, and he said, oh man, he's heard so many great things about that, and Cannibal Corpse was just recently there, and they'd love to come there. So I think it's not only spreading amongst the fans or getting the fans excited about these big bands coming, but a lot of the big bands are also excited about the opportunity of playing for a handful of very passionate people down at the tip of Africa, because I think it's something very, very unique. So, yeah.
No,
Well,
definitely.
here, I don't know. Carlos may have heard the story. I'm not sure. But the last show Beatrix saw in South Africa was Cataclysm.
Yeah.
She went with one of y'all, right?
So again,
Mashak was on. Raven was the chauffeur.
yeah, she drove with me in the car. We went to the show together.
Okay, yeah, and that's when she first met you. Well, the first
That's
show
right.
she saw when she got to America was Cataclysm. So, all right, so we went to see Cataclysm, and the way that the metal shows work here in America, you don't get these big venues at a lot of these shows. We went to this place called the Scout Bar, down in outside of Houston, near NASA, and it's a little club. It holds maybe like 200-300 people maybe, right? So we're hanging out, and I told her, I said, if you hang out a little bit after the show, you'll probably get to meet some of the band members, like, cause it's just the way it works down here. And sure enough, she's standing outside, and and Mauricio Iacono comes walking out, and she about shits herself and spills water all over him, and and gets to hang out with him. And she told him, she's like, I saw you in South Africa when you were there. And he said that it was one of the best experiences he ever had, was playing in South Africa. And so the bands are getting the word out there that they really enjoy the touring in South Africa. They enjoy the people, and they obviously enjoy the scenery, because South Africa is one of the most beautiful countries out there. So there is the word spreading around amongst the metal community that South Africa is a good place to go and play.
Yeah, I think that comes down to the fact that also because there isn't, we're not in the mainstream touring schedules of bands, and they only come once, in a blue moon. The guys are so passionate, the crowd is so passionate, and I think because we get it so seldom, that's why they're so passionate about it. And obviously, the bands absolutely love that, because what's better than just feeding off the crowd's insane energy. Where they don't maybe get that from, in the Europe festival scene, because it's these massive, stages, massive, 80,000 crowds. And it doesn't quite translate to that intensity like it does here in South Africa, when it's a small club, just like down there in the south. And it's very intense and in your face.
Yeah, I thought y'all would appreciate that. At least y'all know that there is something happening out there that maybe you don't see as obvious. I think we've been going for, what are we, an hour and 20 minutes now? Just about. Let's say we wrap this up, and then I want y'all to go ahead and plug anything y'all got. Let us know if there's a new album coming out. Let us know what shows y'all are going to be playing upcoming, and what to look for, and where to follow you, where to find your music, where to find your pages, your websites, whatever you got going on, man.
All right. Well, obviously we're just quickly getting a list of, social media and things to check out. But obviously we've got, we are busy working on album number 2. Album number 1 was obviously Black Wolf City, which is available on, your iTunes, your Deezer, Spotify. I mean, anything major in terms of getting it online. You can also, if you want a physical CD, you can also, obviously get in touch with the band, and order that. I think, JC is just quickly going to tell you of some of our social media, what do you call it? The plugs or the names?
Yeah. So on Facebook, we're Deadline Q9. Q9 is the name of was the number of the garage. We practice it.
Okay.
Yeah, on Twitter, we're also Deadline Q9_band. On YouTube, we're Deadline Band SA, and on Instagram, we're Deadline Metal. Look, we post some silly stuff on Instagram. We're very active on Facebook. As far as gigs are concerned, we're on holiday now, busy writing. I think it's safe to say we're four songs down for the new album. With another kind of 2 we're busy working on. We want to see if we can finish writing by the end of the year. It's going to be a follow-up to the story of Black Wolf City. So there's a whole concept behind Black Wolf City, but the album itself is not a concept album. So it's not an Operation Mindcrime or it comes with a story from song 1 to song 10 or whatever the case may be. It's more a concept of the cover and the artwork and all that. And it's a concept that you find within all our merch, within all our shirts and everything. So then, our next gig is on the 25th of August. We're joining Chaos Doctrine for the end of their album launch for their Joburg show. Then, thereafter we're doing Botswana. We're doing the Spring Day show in Port Elizabeth and Grahamstown. We do Botswana at the end of the month. A festival called Rock the Nation with bands from South Africa, Mozambique and Botswana. And then, I think we're doing a Halloween show in Bloemfontein. And we're busy booking now as we go. I think for now it's just to get out to different cities, play with different people that have heard us and haven't heard of us. And then, maybe go quiet again beginning of next year so we can record and, see if we can look at an album launch. I don't know. We'll have to see how the new songs go, but maybe middle of next year.
Okay. All right. That's awesome, man. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. This was Stranger Encounters. That was Deadline. Check out their album, Black Wolf City, available on iTunes. And I'm Tommy Salmons. Late.
Sinking, tearing deep within my skin. Faded eyes can't see true